it's Sunday, so welcome back to my video, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about where I'm at, and then I'm going to do the Writer's Life for Me tag, which I found actually on a writer's blog. I don't think she originated it, but I'm going to cite her anyway, because she's the one I found. Her name's Sierra Horton. It's a Blogspot blog. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this tag at the end of the video because it sounded like fun. So as far as edits are going, I'm on page 35. Most of that was actually done today. I don't know how much I'm going to get after my video. I may end up spending a little more time relaxing than I planned on. However, this week there is a women's strike going on Wednesday, and my office is participating, so I will be off on Wednesday, and hopefully I can get some extra editing done that day. I'm hoping to get some more writing done later in the week. As I've said before, this chapter ends on page 37, so I have 2 pages left essentially to edit here. I'm a little ways into 35, and 37 doesn't finish off the page. So I'm hoping I can make some progress on chapter 2. I think chapter 2 is a little shorter than chapter 1. Chapter 1 is really long, which I also want to examine, but I did just cut a whole section, which was a couple pages. So that's, you know, making some progress in that direction. So, all right, as I said, this is a Writer's Life for Me tag. What kind of writer are you? That's a complicated question on a number of fronts. I write short stories, I write novels, and then I also write various other, you know, like technical things if I need to, or I've done some website writing, I've done some writing for my husband's gaming books. So I mean, it really just depends. I've done a lot of different kinds of writing. I prefer short stories and novels, and I prefer horror as a general term. When did you start writing, and what made you want to try it? I don't remember really a time when I didn't write. Even before I knew how to write stories, I had essentially a cupboard under the stairs, like Harry Potter, that I would that I put a table in the, like, way in the back of it, and I would sit in there and write sometimes for I don't even know how long. But I thought of it as my office, and I would sit back there all by myself, and nobody would bother me. So so yeah, that was a thing I did really young. So that's not even a closet I can stand up in. My parents still live there, and I can't stand up in that closet. So it was quite some time ago. So what made you want to try it really doesn't apply. I just never really didn't. I just always kind of wrote. I've written on enough throughout my life. I wrote a comic kind of thing in middle school. I wrote a novel in high school, which I later lost. I talked about that in another video. And so I've always just kind of written, and that's just been how things have gone. Sometimes I would write for me, and sometimes I would write for other people. I kept a really, like, very daily journal at one point in my life. I enjoyed that a great deal, but I don't have the discipline to continue doing that. So, what inspires your stories? That's a long list of things. I mean, lots of things will inspire me. A smell will inspire me. Seeing something will inspire me. Going places will inspire me. Sometimes just a conversation will inspire me. So it can really vary from one day to the next what will inspire me. Almost anything can if the circumstances are correct. What themes do you like to explore in your writing? That's kind of a hard question. My interests change quite frequently. I will be very interested in something, and then I'll learn a whole lot about it, and then I'll move on to the next thing that I'm interested in. So thematically, it's kind of like whatever themes I'm into at the time. You know, if I'm into a cause, the themes behind that cause will come up too. So it really varies, but I don't have any specific themes, and I don't usually set out to get a message across, although sometimes that happens. That's not usually the purpose of why I'm writing. Are you a pantser, a plotter, or a bit of both? As I've mentioned before, I do not like to be called a pantser. That sounds weird. I don't like it. I would prefer not to. But I guess that's what I am. I don't plan anything before I sit down. I sit down, I start typing. and then I go back and I edit it. So I guess that doesn't really, I mean, other than me not liking that title, I don't know that there's much else I can say about that. So, where are you at in your writing journey? It says querying, agenting, or published. I am self-publishing my books. In today's market, it makes sense to do so, and my husband already publishes, so I essentially publish through his publishing house, as it were. So that's, you know, that's where I'm at with it. I used to try traditional publishing, however, I found the use of the United States Postal Service to do so was really disgruntling. I believe that it has changed since I changed my mind about it, and that more places are welcoming of email and whatnot, but that was really what changed my mind about it, and I don't know that I'd want to go back at this point. I really like how I'm doing things, and I like the idea that I'm in charge of my own stuff. Have you ever entered any writing contests, finaled, or won? I don't think I've ever entered a contest. I've sent things in to be published. I've been rejected and I've gotten published. It's, you know, kind of a mixed bag. You're going to get rejected. That's a thing that's going to happen. Who are your writer heroes? There's a long list, and sometimes I can't even think of names, and today is one of those days. Tim O'Brien wrote The Things They Carried, which really was one of the first literary stories that I latched onto. Dennis Johnson, who wrote Jesus' Son, that book really got me. I have Candide by Voltaire on my desk right now, and a Stephen King book. And I'm currently reading Zach Anner's book, If at Birth You Don't Succeed. It is really clever. I enjoy it a great deal. So, I mean, I love reading different writers. I love hearing different voices. I love everything to do with writing and reading and everything. So, have you ever been to a writing conference? Share your best and worst experiences. I've been to one. It was in Indianapolis. I went with my best friend. That was like a lot of fun, but it was also one of those things that you do when you're in your early 20s that you don't do when you're older. We went, we didn't have a plan at all. We ended up not being able to do what we thought we were going to do, which was sleep in the car. We ended up having to get a hotel room at like midnight. It was $200 and some odd for this hotel room. It was, I mean, you don't do these things when you're like a real adult. You do them when you're like a young adult. So it was a lot of fun then, but I couldn't go through that again at this point in my life. And as far as the best and worst experiences, I found the conference a lot of fun. I liked talking to other people about writing, but ultimately I got nowhere from it. I'm really socially awkward, especially around strangers. I get into this group with a whole bunch of writers, and I feel like if I say anything, I'm stupid, and what if I say something wrong, or someone misunderstands me, or they do things different, and they think I'm a moron. So I just don't want to engage at all. So it's not an environment that I do well in. So top 3 tips you'd give to newbie writers. I guess number 1 would be understand now that you're not as good as you think you are, or be hurt. Most new writers think that they need less editing than they do. Most new writers think that they need less direction than they do, and less practice than they do. So, you know, and that's not across the board, but a lot of times that's what you run into. One of my least favorite things that was ever said in my college writing class, we had a girl who said, I don't write it, I don't have to edit it because it just comes out perfect. That's not gonna typically be the case. That's just not gonna be the case. So unfortunately, that's one of the things you have to absolutely be okay with. Sorry about that. My husband came. He brought toilet paper. Okay, anyway, so yeah, so the first tip would be ready for rejection. Be ready to understand that you are comparing yourself from a different set of eyes than other people are comparing you. And you don't learn to write by reading alone. You learn to write by reading and practicing. And you have to fail before you're going to succeed. So sometimes the best way to learn is to do badly. And that's okay, but you can't count on that you're as good as you feel like you are when you're reading your own stuff. It's just not necessarily true. And you're going to be really upset with your life and really upset with other people if you don't just accept that to begin with. So, I mean, that sounds really negative, I'm sure, but that's not what I mean it to be, but it is what it is. Number 2 would be write more than you feel like you can write. If you think you can write 30 minutes a day, try to write 45. Usually, if you can push yourself that little extra bit, that will help you to see where you can fudge some things. It's hard to schedule writing in when you have school or work or both, and you're trying to also write in your spare time. So one of the things you have to do is be able to stop and just write for a few minutes. So even if it means that you get that 15 minutes while you're on your lunch break, you still got that 15 minutes. And fitting that in helps you to later be able to fit it in more, and then you'll get more time. Don't be afraid to be over the top. Sometimes we try to mellow out our writing because you don't want it to be too boisterous. So what you do is you pull back on your voice. One of the things that people really latch onto is a very strong voice. So if you pull back on that, you might actually be doing yourself more harm. I would say that usually you should not pull back unless someone else outside also sees it as a time where you should pull back. So maybe holding on for beta readers or alpha readers or whatever before you start really entertaining, pulling back your voice a little bit. Also, when you're doing that, remember that you're going to continue to hone it as you're editing. So you can mellow out places, you know, we go through ups and downs when we're writing. So you can mellow out places where it might be stronger if you just think that like the spot doesn't agree. But, sorry, my leg was jumping and it made the camera jump. But you don't want to mellow out the voice entirely and then later look at it and think it didn't have enough voice. So that's really important. So I think that does it for this video. That's the end of the tag, it looks like. Yeah, and I don't have any friends, really. So I guess that negates the chances of me tagging anyone in it. So I guess good luck on anything you're working on, and I will see you next week. Bye! Hopefully I can get some extra editing done that day. Sailor, stop!